So, welcome to Build to Scale e-commerce show by Atkins Agency, and today we'll be interviewing Kilian Markert, a go-to high-performance coach helping business owners to scale to the new heights without neglecting themselves, their health, and their performance. If you are like a online business owner and you're looking to become more efficient and scale your business while still maintaining the sanity, and we all know how hard it is to do that, right? And at the same time, to be on top of your game, I think you came to the right place today. And stay tuned for this episode. Say, hey, Kilian, really happy to have you here today.
Hey, Darius, it's awesome to be on the show, and I'm excited to talk about some cool things today.
Awesome. Perfect. So let's hop into the content. According to our new motto, we are all about content and value. So let's hop into the first question. How did you get interested into productivity, and how did your journey into becoming a high performer started?
That's an awesome question. And basically it all started, I studied business in university. Some entrepreneurs, they went to university. I don't know how it was for you, but I studied business in university actually. And while I was studying, I worked actually at two different internships. I worked once for an international company, quite big in Germany, you would know it. And the other one was actually an online marketing agency, right? We did like Facebook ads, Google ads, YouTube ads, and these kind of things. And basically for me, there was the trigger point because first of all, I realized I wanted to do my own thing, that this 9-to-5 thing was not at all for me. And then I also realized that a lot of people there, if it was freelancers or the business owners themselves, they were actually sometimes struggling with all these topics, with like distractions, with focusing, time management, energy management, and so on. And for me, it was like the trigger point that I realized, I was always interested in personal development, learning new things, becoming better. I was just genuinely curious about things in general, right? And I realized, okay, people actually struggle with that. And that's what entrepreneurship is. You identify a problem in the market and you think like, okay, man, I'm actually good at this stuff. And then you step by step, of course, become a specialist and expert in it. And then you can start helping people. So it started early on as a teenager. I started to read the books, the classics, like Think and Grow Rich, Psycho-Cybernetics. You probably know all of them. And then, step by step, it got more specific, followed certain people and so on, courses and certifications. And then step by step, built my own business from there.
Okay, so most likely you have at least a few years of experience in the field, right? Exactly. And how long you are actually doing this, coaching people to become high performers?
Exactly. So the business itself, that's around 2.5 years now. And before that, I initially actually got started with life coaching, right? So you will see that right now that my coaching approach is a mixture of consulting and coaching. Like I love this differentiation because consulting is more like, hey, do this and that, 1, 2, 3, follow this proven process. And coaching is more like uncovering the roadblocks, asking the right questions, and helping the client, empower the client, and actually help them realize the solutions themselves. So with that life coaching approach, it's very important. We'll probably talk about that in the mindset section, that a lot of people, they know about the information, they know about all the things they should be doing, but there's this invisible force, dragging them back. And it's usually mindset related or, anything related to vision, values, and so on. And that's why it's important to have that as well. And I'm actually pretty happy that I have this background in life coaching as well.
Yeah, I think it's certainly, super useful skill because this is even what we are doing, with our own team right now. We are not, just giving clear answers. It's much more about the questions you ask people and letting them to come up with their own answers, because this is where, the power lies. And if you're applying the same principles, to biohacking and optimizing health performance, I think it could lead to very interesting results. Because all the books I have read up till now, it's almost always, not for you to ask questions about yourself, but it's more about, hey, this is the info from my experience, go and implement it, And my personal experience, everybody is different. Everybody is having their own struggles. And I personally had my own struggles here and there. And kind of, you just have to find solutions what works for you, because everybody's individual, and you reach these by going through questions. And, personally, I kind of believe that there are two pieces to becoming kind of a best business owner and growing business successfully, from your own perspective, right? So one is what you mentioned, the mindset. Another is physical performance. So maybe let's start with mindset. Maybe you can talk about more, what are the most common limiting beliefs that business owners are actually having?
100%. That's an awesome question. And It's great that you asked that, because a lot of people, they don't talk about that so much, but it's a very common and very important thing to talk about, especially once you realize, okay, we're having a business owner right here. And I know you guys at AdKings, you help, business owners and e-commerce stores and so on scale, right? Really get them maximum returns and performance and profits and so on. But there's something on the personal level, on the mindset level, that might be holding business owners back, right? And what I've realized, very common limiting beliefs are the following. Number one is that people think they need to work all the time. That's a very, very big one. They think like, the more I work, the better will the results be that I get in my business. And that's of course flawed, because at a certain threshold, you're facing diminishing returns and you're actually harming yourself more by doing that. And another one is also that people still think deep down they are doing the things best, right? That they need to kind of micromanage sometimes and, have problems outsourcing and delegating and so on. And the thing is, especially the first one of those two limiting beliefs, the working a lot, this is a very common one. And it sometimes goes back to a deeper problem. And that is that people derive their sense of self-worth, their sense of feeling good enough from work, from accomplishment. And if you ask about like the where that comes from, it's usually upbringing. It's usually childhood. It's usually the role models you had in your upbringing. It can be school teachers, but it also can be your parents, that you felt like, oh, I need to perform. I need to have good grades. I need to, accomplish stuff all the time, do stuff. Otherwise I feel like, oh man, they will, I will not be loved anymore. And these are the deeper mindset foundations that hold people back. And then they like try to read a book on biohacking and try to get more productive, but something in them tells them, dude, you got to stop, right? It's like, just
they're not solving like, core behind reasons, we are solving kind of like, symptoms instead of like the reasons behind, right? And, very interesting what you mentioned, people being addicted to, achievement, etc. And I'm certainly, addicted myself to achievement. And I wouldn't say, in the past, there was like anything, about school, what you mentioned, etc. But as I grew, it's very satisfying to reach level after level and see, your personal growth, etc. And I would say, it's a big driving force for me right now. It's much more than money, etc. And, sometimes having problems stopping working actually. So kind of, I think I will take a few maybe interesting ideas from this conversation here. And tell me, how do you go about identifying these like limiting beliefs for people, the core reasons?
That's a good question as well, because it shows up usually in their day-to-day. So what I do with my clients, for example, is there is an accountability dashboard we have. It's basically a centralized tool to keep track of your daily performance, your habits, sleep, work time, the actions you took, output, and all these kind of things. And you basically see that these people, they generally overwork, right? Sometimes the work is bleeding out into the night. That's, of course, a problem. And the other problem is, of course, when things show up as anxiety, these symptoms that they have problems sleeping, insomnia, they dream about work, and it's really getting bad, right? And the thing is, look, what you said is awesome. I love it. And I want to say to that, it's really about the place it's coming from. So it's always, I love to make this differentiation between inspiration versus desperation. If you're working out of inspiration, I actually feel great and I have this inner feeling of self-esteem and good enough, and I know I'll be fine no matter what, right? And you're like, but it's awesome. I'm passionate about this. For you, it's e-commerce and Facebook and ads and whatever, right? And for others, that's good, right? But if it comes from desperation, right? It's like, oh, I need to accomplish that, otherwise, if not, I'll be not good, right? This is a problem, and this is the differentiation to make. And if it's a driving force for you and it's like a passion, then it's awesome. Then you have a balance. But even in that case, you still need to make sure you're bringing your car to the regular oil check, right? Like basically to the maintenance, right? That means take time off and these kind of things. Sleep is super important. And go back to your question, how to identify those beliefs. It's very interesting. It's usually in the language people are using. a lot of people, they're using language like it's very competitive, like, oh, I have to do this and I need to, like it's more like it's very forced, right? And in the questions they use that, and that shows that it's very desperation based. But if you're talking more about inspiration, then it's like, oh, I want to do this. Like, I feel inspired to do this. I'd love to get this done today in the evening still, right? That's how you identify that there might be something which is more limiting belief based. And then to actually uncover those beliefs, this is simply something where I use a method which is called sentence completion work. And this is something which you find also Nathaniel Branden talk about. He's the author of The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. And basically, there's the sentences which are half completed, right? And you start to read them and you have to complete them with different endings, right? You, for example, say, whenever I was a teenager, ... Or working to me means ... And you just get into this flow state, like you're having a nice writing flow, and you just complete it with 12 different endings. And at ending 10, you're like, oh, what am I writing here? What is coming up right here, right?
It's
you're not censoring yourself. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a journaling, but in a trance state, so to say. And that way you're coming up with a lot of stuff that you might not have thought about.
Okay, that's very interesting. Like what helped me, and what I'm using to this day is called like 5 whys method, where you're kind of like creating a problem, for example, hey, why I'm feeling this way. And you answer why. And then, out of this why answer, you get, for example, maybe, I haven't dated well today, right? Or something. When you ask why I haven't dated well, right? So maybe, I was stressed or something. This is why I went to McDonald's, right? And why I got stressed. And you kind of like delving deeper and deeper and deeper. And usually by the level of 5 or 6 whys, you kind of get to the root cause of the problem. So this is what kind of helped me and, what I'm using to this day. And it seems to be working relatively well. And do you have, let's say you identify the root cause, right? How are you going about to change this for a person? Because this is the hardest part, finding the problem, knowing the problem is easy. And for me, what helps is there's like a book, Atomic Habits. It's amazing, trying to implement things and just, understand why I'm not doing something, right? And how to go about it. But maybe you have your own like methods about that.
100%. Atomic Habits is an awesome book, and I could talk about it all the time. I did James Clear's trainings already years ago when, like he just had his blog and stuff. So he's an awesome guy. But this is more related to habits, to behaviors, how to implement behaviors. And he also goes to the identity level, which is a super interesting concept. But these things, limiting beliefs about yourself, I would argue they're at a deeper psychological level. They're actually at a level where you could call it's the unconscious level. It's a subconscious level of yourself. And these are things which have been implanted during your upbringing, during those years where you're highly suggestible, usually 4 to 6, kindergarten age, where you're not really, you're soaking up everything like a sponge, and you're like super suggestible to everything. And basically the first step is awareness about the cause of the symptom. So the symptom is something that's happening. You can't stop working, or you're neglecting yourself, or you have negative thoughts and anxiety and so on. And it usually goes back down to belief. And you can use the method you choose. But if you're working with someone, it's a bit easier because you have that feedback and the person can dive deeper and ask, okay, what is it that you believe about yourself? And then, you ask these questions, or what is it that you believe about the world? And when was the first time you had that feeling or these thoughts? And then boom, you start to get deeper, right? So, and once you basically become aware about the root cause of these things, then what's going to happen? If you can somehow, for example, it was someone in your family, or it was, like relationship with your parents or family members and so on. And you can, of course, if the level of consciousness is there, and you can talk to them, and you can still kind of find a way to talk about it, and they show understanding. Oh, we were too strict maybe then, we expected too much, or so on, right? That can already do a lot of healing, right? So bringing these things up and then talking about them, processing them. For others, it could simply be to write a letter. That helps a lot. Very often is the beliefs are still there because you couldn't express, process, or let these emotions out. And when you, for example, write a letter about it, I feel this. I blame other people for this. I'm angry about this. I love this, right? You're basically writing a letter, and then you can even just burn the letter or whatever you want to do, right? And this approach is very good for these heavy things, for when you identify that something happened where you have a situation still in mind that might have triggered this, a very traumatic or painful situation in school or whatever it is, processing that for yourself first or later with the help of someone, that can help. And then to basically change the belief, you got to give yourself a new memory. That's a concept which is from NLP. It's also used in various therapy areas. And it's basically you're reframing the memory you had from the past. You're basically visualizing different kinds of ways, right? You visualize healing images, as they say, right? For example, there was a situation, you were like the teacher and so on, and you visualize that from your personal perspective. Now you go into that memory and you save it with a new emotion. Like it's a more complicated process, but that's how you work with those more heavy things. And then the lighter things, or basically in the future process, is that you got to find new habits to replace your old behaviors, right? So it's a heavy belief work, this trauma, or like this heavy memory work. And the other things is replacing the old habits with new, better habits that actually allow you to live in line with the kind of person you want to become. And this is the double approach.
And what's the way essentially to create these new habits? Because for me, like for a long term, the hardest part was actually, creating a habit that sticks and lasts. So for me, what worked, were actually, once again, that Atomic Habits book and some strategies from there, where I would create and find my own, for example, I would always have hard time waking up early in the mornings. What I started to do is I started to commit 2 or 3 times a week, meeting up either whether it's some sort of call or going to the gym with a trainer in early morning. And this is how I kind of like, I do not miss if I promise somebody else to do something, right?
That's
but
awesome.
If it's just me, it's very easy.
Yeah, and it goes back to understanding actually more deeply your tendencies. There's actually 4 tendencies. There's a great book by Gretchen Rubin about it. And it's basically that how do we deal with expectations, both externally and also internally, externally from other people, internally from ourselves. And there's people who are basically living in line and respect external expectations, but they're, neglecting their own expectations. These are the people who are kind of the ones who kind of, uphold or, like they do whatever other people expect from them, but sometimes they neglect themselves. So for those people, this approach works very well. You need external accountability. You don't want to disappoint others. And then for other people, they actually are questioners. That's their name. And they a little bit resist other people's expectations, and they rather live in line with their own expectations. For them, you gotta really stress the power and the importance of that habit. They question everything. They want information, but once they're convinced that it's a good idea, they're like, oh man, I'm going to go for this, right? So it might be that you are neglecting a few elements, that you are not deeply convinced why you should be waking up early, that you don't really know about the crucial benefits about it, or that you haven't really fully experienced them for yourself, right? This might be one factor. And the other factor is simply why you cannot stick to it. It's that you don't, like I say always, people see the day as an isolated event, and what happens in the day as isolated events. And it is problematic because when you have problem waking up early in the morning, well, it's usually because you failed the evening before, right? This is
exactly, yeah.
Exactly. So you gotta adapt your environment in such a way that it's easy for you to wake up in the morning. You gotta protect your sleep. You gotta go to bed early enough. You gotta make sure that then you having actually finishing work early enough, so you're not like still fired up. So there's a lot of things to think about, and the day is like a loop that starts to close at some point. You will never find a loose end there. It's a closed circle. Everything influences each other. And this is something which many people neglect. They think, I cannot stick to that. But it's usually that there's other bigger flaws in their day. Then they, for example, lay awake at night, still check the phone all the time. And then they, of course, cannot stick to that. So to summarize it, becoming aware about all the systems in your day, all those little habits, and having a more general approach to keeping attention and paying attention to all of them. This is usually the recipe for success, to implement habits in each part of your day.
Exactly. It's almost, what I started to do myself, to plan the day relatively vigorously, to have like weekends off, like not even logging into chats, etc., into Slacks. Just because I'm seeing that once you have like some time off, that all the other time you have across the week is so much more productive. And you are able to bring so much more brain power and value through the less time. Basically you can work almost like half the time, and breaking, I would say, like 90-95% of the value. And this value is usually what much more, thought through for our clients and our own business, etc. It's kind of like bigger value essentially. And we kind of already like touched on another topic about physical health, right? So what do you think, about energy and what are the methods to keep energy high, across the day, and, how to recharge it?
That's an awesome question, because energy is something which many people kind of heard about, but they underestimate it. Many people, they rather talk about time management and so on, but actually it's more about energy management, because then time management is much easier. So to keep energy high, you got to master the 3 pillars. And the 3 pillars are sleep, diet, and exercise. And exercise is then comprised of different things. It's not that easy, because you got to have movement throughout the day, not just 1 hour in the gym. It's also comprised of more advanced things like work ergonomics and so on. And nutrition is something where you got to ask yourself, okay, am I having my nutrients covered long term? Do I have any deficiencies? Might that be the cause of my fatigue? Might I even have intolerances? Some people are lactose intolerant. Some people are gluten intolerant, right? Might be causing fatigue for you, right? These are things people don't think about. And another thing is then sleep. The biggest productivity booster, it's not sexy, but it's sleep. It's just a fact.
But it works.
If you had great sleep, duration-wise, but very important also depth-wise, then you feel recovered and you don't have that big of afternoon lows anymore, right? This is super important. And then another little nugget that I want to give you, that I actually did myself today before this podcast, and it's something many people underestimate, is the power of walks. Afternoon, basically, you leave the house directly before kind of you start to get groggy. You directly stand up after lunch and you get walking. Super important. It helps with blood sugar regulation. And then another thing, what I implemented myself is, as my afternoon ritual is, so to say, I do mobility work. I have a foam roller. I have tools for stretching, and I come back from my walk, and I lay down on my foam roller, release tightness in my muscles, especially hip flexors or shoulder and so on. And I do some controlled movements. Is on a neuronal way very helpful for your body to gain good posture again. And then I feel myself really fired up, really energized again, because that's what people underestimate as well, that your body is the vehicle for your performance, for yourself, for your energy. And if you don't treat your body well, posture-wise, also relaxation-wise, then you will not have a lot of energy. So these are a few tools to think about.
Yeah, exactly. And, you mentioned, basically eating healthy, etc. And maybe you could delve a bit deeper into this topic, because there's like usually, it's not that, hey, you ate like a MC Donald's or something for a day, right? It most likely will not cost you, anything long-term, etc. But what I learned personally, that if you are consistently eating like sugary diets, a lot of carbs, etc., what could really happen is you develop inflammations within the body. And this is what's bringing the performance. And how you have this kind of brain fog almost, and you do not want to do anything, etc. This is practically a majority side inflammation doing its own part. And for me, it was very, recently, basically not recently, like 3 months ago, I started to do a ketogenic diet where I completely said no to sugar, practically no to carbs. Right now, I'm slowly introducing them back in, right? But the difference is so huge. In the past, I would have to drink caffeine, L-theanine, to basically be on track. Right now, I practically do not need it. I'm feeling the same way, the same focus, and even longer work time hours compared to before when I was on caffeine. So just by
That's
fixing the
awesome.
diet, yeah.
I love it, man. I actually, now that you say it, in 2016, I also did a ketogenic diet for around 8 months. I did it actually as a diet form to lose some weight, and it works definitely. The thing for me, however, it's not very sustainable, simply because you're cutting out of a lot of things like fruits, for example. That's a big one for me, because they say, yeah, sugars, carbs, can't eat fruits. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, fruits are actually, quite helpful. So that's one problem, but I understand that for clarity reasons, also has a lot of research in terms of like cancer prevention, might be very relevant there as well. It's very good. But what you say is very interesting. The sugar prevention, it helps you actually have a better gut biome. Basically, the microbiome in your gut is better because there's bacteria which thrive on sugars, and they're usually the harmful bacteria. And what you want to have instead is basically you want to have probiotics and prebiotics, which actually help your digestion. And this is super powerful. And what I found people struggle with most with diet is actually, it's not necessarily it's like McDonald's all the time, but it's just a general lack of nutrients. And what I mean by that is people don't eat enough green veggies, for example, like Brussels sprouts, broccoli, spinach, kale, cauliflower, these kind of things, right? Which are very dense in nutrients. And what people do instead, give me my supplement, and but they don't understand that it's less bioavailable than the actual food. Right. And this is something which people underestimate, because if you just eat rice all day, rice, chicken, and curry sauce, like there's hardly any nutrient in there. And you do that for years, and then you're wondering why you feel groggy. Well, it might be you have some deficiencies, right? So this is super important to fix that, and then it's much easier to stay focused.
Any specific probiotics you would recommend? Because my personal experience with probiotics is, do not always look at what we advertise, because sometimes, we're advertising like certain, I don't know, like 15 million, for example, different bacteria inside, etc. But reality is we are not basically alive here. Because we're packaged, etc. Usually you have only about 20% of them surviving. So any specific brands maybe, you found to work for you like better than others?
I actually don't use any supplement probiotics. I actually just get it all from food. I drink, for example, I drink sometimes kefir, this milk thing, and then also another one is very good. Is like unprocessed sauerkraut or cabbage, as you call it. And this has a lot of milk bacteria still in them, and this is, in my opinion, the best source of that.
What do you think about kombucha yourself? I know it was a huge trend, etc., but maybe you have your own insights.
Personally, I've tried it before. I drank it a few times. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I mean, it's more of a preference thing. I don't like it so much in terms of the taste. It's some people I heard talking about it and they love it. They swear by it. But again, it's an individual thing with those. There's a number of pro and prebiotics you can use, and you got to find yourself something that you enjoy. I'm German. We love our sauerkraut,
Your own pluses, right?
Exactly. And the another cool thing is that people actually can implement for themselves a prebiotic is actually you having potatoes. You, for example, get potatoes, you put them into the oven like normal potatoes, make like wedges from them, cut them, put them in the oven, you get them out and you put them in the fridge. And what's going to happen is that they are going to crystallize, and they're building this resistant starch. And this resistant starch
carbs,
right, is something that a bacteria are feeding on. So it's a very nice prebiotic to actually help your bacteria in your microbiome to thrive. So this is a very easy thing to implement.
Okay, that's interesting, because some of the keto people, are using this as kind of like a hack to eat potatoes. So we bake it, we cook it, we freeze it, and we reheat it. And basically it's kind of like starch carbs that are not getting absorbed by body. But you mentioned, that bacteria is eating them. So how does it work more?
Yeah, it definitely, what happens is, so there's this awesome podcast you got to check out with Dr. Rhonda Patrick on the Joe Rogan podcast. She's all about that, about prebiotics, probiotics. She talks about that all the time. So for further insight, check that out on Joe Rogan. And the method it works is basically that as you're freezing those potatoes or just in the fridge, there's crystals building at the edges of them. And then as you ingest them, it's basically in your gut, the bacteria are feeding on them. And this might be the reason why they're not being processed then by your body, because the bacteria process them. But this is like a double win for keto people, because it means basically you're prolonging the bacteria you want to have in your body, and you're not using the kind of food you don't want to have.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we covered kind of, about thinking and mindset, about energy, but what do you think we could do about, let's say, work environment and office space, right? Because this is another very important thing.
Yeah, it's a very important topic to talk about, and it goes back to what we said, that it is one overlooked aspect of energy management is work ergonomics and work environment. And one key aspect, for example, is what I implemented myself over the last few months is having a standing desk, right? It's something very important for your posture in the long term, and basically making sure that you're not sitting too much. Most people, they're sitting like 8-9 hours per day. It's really bad. And then there's studies out there who actually show that if you're sitting 8-9 hours per day and then you're actually exercising like 1 hour, this sitting might even cancel out the benefits from your exercise, because sitting has been shown to have very harmful effects on your body, posture wise, blood circulation wise, and so on. So there's an awesome book, highly recommended, Desk Bound by Kelly Starrett. It also shows you tips on how to transition from a more sitting environment to a more standing environment. And what I would everybody to try is like get a standing desk, try it for some time. And then also what I have myself right here, I have like a standing mat, like an anti-fatigue mat. I basically stand on that. It helps you to not get your feet so fatigued.
And then it's another thing is not equal, most likely, right?
It's basically
mat, yeah.
It has a little bit of give, so it's a little bit padded, but it's also, you can also move around with it. It encourages movement. This is the key thing, because the key concept is that any posture is not bad per se, just prolonged time in that posture is the problem. So you want to circle through different positions. And what I do myself, I have like a little stool behind me where I can lean on to chill a bit. Then I have in front of me another stool. I can put my leg up right here. You don't even see it. And I'm doing the Captain Morgan pose. It's like the Captain Morgan,
Yeah.
And then basically I change to the other one. And this is super helpful for you, because your body gives you signals you got to move. And to implement that is very, very good to have, for example, a Pomodoro timer that you just work in 25 minutes and take 5 minutes break, or at least 50 minutes and then 10 minutes break. And then in that time, you get up, you walk a bit. And what I have myself here as well is just a yoga mat. You have a yoga mat nearby. What you're going to do, you go down on it, you stretch a little bit, you relax, maybe take some deep breaths. This is another easy step to have better posture and manage your focus and your energy, right? Very easy. Other than that, you don't want to have too much in your office. I have a whiteboard here. I have my yoga mat. And apart from that, my lights here and things. And that's it, right? Not a lot of stuff. And that's very helpful for focus as well.
And personally, I know a lot of people are struggling, sometimes we have all these things in place, but where we are struggling the most is, avoiding distractions and stress. I guess it could be even like two different topics, One thing is distractions and, staying productive. Another thing could be a stress.
Yeah, the first thing, distraction, is something a lot of people struggle with. And I know in e-commerce, especially, a lot of people, because all these notifications you got to check all the time. So it's a big topic, and basically it goes back a little bit to your priorities and your boundaries. So if you are someone who has as a culture in your team and also with your clients that you're available 24/7, well, that's just an issue, because then you're going to be interrupted all the time. So it goes back to proper boundaries, both with your clients. Okay, when are you available? When are your business hours? Then also, what are emergency channels? This is something I recommend, that you say, okay, I just have one channel, and then define what is the emergency that could get me out of there, like a phone number or something like that, that you still say, okay, in these cases, I'm available. And other than that, defining with your team members also, okay, how am I available? When can you contact me? When am I checking Slack and so on, right? Because the most important thing that people get wrong in terms of focus and distraction, they start the day in a reactive state instead of a proactive state. And that means waking up first thing, phone in the hand, and directly boom, glued to the screen, and man, it's over.
It's crazy. And if you just open Slack, before actually doing any productive work, the day is hard. The day is hard.
And it's something that if you want to protect your attention, and you talked about it, productive work, and it's also about highly creative work, difficult work. I call it deep work. Like there's a great book about this as well. And the idea is, if you lose your attention in these fires early in the morning, in these notifications, it's very, very difficult to get back on track and produce very valuable work, like, content or strategy or SOPs, these kind of things, which are very valuable. And that's why you protect that first. And then after that, you go back and work on these other fires and so on. But that, as you see, goes back to having a proper day structure, and then also making sure that you actually have systems in place that help you with that. And we're talking about here app blockers. We're talking about the airplane mode. We're talking about also using these things for your computer so it doesn't trigger you all the time, and then these boundaries and so on. And then the second topic, as you said, the stress topic, is very, very connected to that. So one thing that stresses people a lot is needing to be available all the time, and then still checking emails in the evening when they're actually wanting to wind down, relax, and so on. So what I recommend my clients as well is actually not only use app blockers for Instagram and Facebook or whatever you have on your phone when you want to work, but actually getting those for your business apps in the evening. Like that means, okay, it's 9 p.m. now and you want to, I don't know, chill with your girlfriend or whatever, do some exercise, I don't know. Well, block out the email, man. Like you give your emergency channel a phone number, whatever it is, for rare emergencies, cool. But then you can block out those emails, because the problem is we are in these OCD loops that we just check the phone and we go through all the apps and circle,
totally addicted.
Yeah, and this is the problem. And then you just jump into it, even if you don't want to. So you got to put a hard stop to this with technology, with app blockers, or just removing the phone anyway. And then it's much easier to be less stressed.
Yeah, and I know, like, another topic that causes, people a lot of stress is having like a lot of things to do. And, sometimes a lot of things on the deadline, so basically you're pushed to perform and do, and, you do not have like enough time. So how would you recommend people to deal with it?
So basically it starts all with proper prioritization. So you got to have a system where you ask yourself, okay, first of all, am I the one giving myself the tasks? Am I, for example, the business owner who largely comes up with the tasks? Or am I someone, maybe, I have a co-founder, or I get some tasks from whatever reason? Then it's, of course, a different story. Let's use a situation where you are largely responsible for your tasks. Well, then you got to give yourself, you have a framework, right? A framework that you say, okay, this is my one thing for my month. This is my main goal, right? And you basically break that down into your weeks. You break it down into certain milestones. You break it down into objectives you want to have. Both the input, so basically the work you do, and then the outcome, the results that you're expecting from this, they need to be separated. And then once you have done this, you basically split out the tasks properly into your week. I like to have always one big objective, one ugly frog, one most important tasks, one thing for each day, which is a key driver. It's usually an important and not urgent task that you complete in a deep work block. And then you're spreading that out properly. And then in the afternoon, you do more shallow tasks and calls and so on. So, and when people feel they fail to meet deadlines, it starts with poor prioritization, poor planning. They don't do weekly reviews. They just take everything as it comes. They don't really think ahead monthly. For example, today, 1st of September, I did my monthly debriefing. I reviewed August. I planned September, right? I do that on a weekly basis for the week. And then the night before, I plan my next day. And once you have that properly implemented, you have all these systems to make sure it's lined up properly. And then the second element of that, of course, is you want to have a good day structure, which means you got to work from your calendar, got to use time blocking, got to give yourself proper blocks for each task, working from the calendar, meaning everything you want to do needs to be scheduled in. And then once you do that, you're actually seeing how I spend my time. You see, okay, what am I doing when? And why am I missing deadlines, right? And then another thing is when you're running over those blocks, is usually also a little bit perfectionism. You try maybe to get things right too much, or you're not experienced enough to know how long it's going to take. But that should get better over time as well.
So what I'm noticing personally, right now I basically am planning a week ahead. I'm having, like time blocks, etc. And usually plan, sometimes, you have to plan almost like 10 minutes accuracy, right? So what I do is in the morning from 8:30 to 1 p.m., I usually have is 4.5 hours of like productive work where I'm trying to focus on, something productive and, that creates long-term value. Afterwards, I'm trying to have like almost like hour or 2 hours of break. And then I go into the calls and the fires and, everything that's happening very, from emergency perspective. But what I'm noticing here, and it's very interesting that some emergencies do happen across the week, right? And sometimes you just do not have time to fit them in if you're like already pre-planning everything. So once again, what would your approach here? Do I say, hey, these 4 hours in the morning, do I allocate part of it, for calls or, some sort of emergency solvings, or somehow, I have to expand my work hours or something? Because some of the things, for example, like a podcast call, right? We are committed here pretty much, right?
Yeah, the thing is, I would say, look, the problem is maybe that if you just say, okay, I do 4 hours in the morning, and you view that as one separate entity. So what I'm saying by this is, if you split that up instead, you say, okay, I say my 4 hours, they consist, for example, of a 1 hour deep work block, just 1 hour on something very highly deep. And then after that, I have, for example, 1.5 hours, right? Like there would be 4 hours in total, 2 focus work blocks. That's how I do it. I have can also be a 1.5 hour deep work. Doesn't matter. It's just about deep work, focus 1, focus 2. Deep work means important, but not urgent. No way you're going to get into Slack there. You're going to get that one thing done that you talked about, the SOP, the content, whatever we talked about. Then focus 1. You got to allow for these highly unlikely emergencies where you directly got to dive in, right? You do that already in the morning because it just needs your attention, right? So that means you basically allow for that in the morning if it happens in the focus 1 block. But if it doesn't happen, you're just focusing on something which is usually important and urgent. Can be client delivery, can be again some request or something like that. Or if not, you're gonna keep working on something very productive that is driving your business, right? So if that happens and you're plowing out those 5 deep work blocks during the week, Monday to Friday, you're massively growing your business. And you still have time to react to emergencies, because what is 1 hour? No, usually no emergency is so urgent that it can't wait 1 hour, right? Like if you were sick or if you're sleeping, like usually, like 1 hour whatsoever, right? So, and if that's even important, you have the emergency phone number, right? You can call there, like that's no problem. So that's how I would say it, that you put it in there in the morning, and if there's no important emergency, you just do it as you said. Then the rest is in the afternoon, calls, shallow work, which is usually urgent but not so important, and then that gets done.
Yeah, this is pretty much what I'm doing, where I'm coming to the point of, like, most likely this is the most efficient way to do it. And I'm seeing, why I'm asking this question, because I'm seeing like a lot of e-commerce owners to be in similar spot, because when we're growing, their work shifts more towards, not them doing actual things, but having a team to run it. And when you have a team to run it, you are much more, inclined to react to certain things. For example, you have to have emergency calls or some sort of arrangements, etc. And, these things happen and it's normal. So yeah, it might be relevant. So Kilian, tell the audience where people could find you if they want to learn more about you.
100%. So you can find me on social media, on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Just use my first and last name. That's Kilian Markert. Just, you can hit me up there, no problem. And apart from that, also my website, that's kilianmarkert.com. And I also have a free checklist for you guys where you can see the advanced peak performance checklist, all those habits that I think you need to have in your day to have an awesome day. And that's just kilianmarkert.com/checklist.
Okay, Kilian. So, I mean, there was so much good information here. I will certainly take some time even to maybe for myself, to rethink certain things that I'm doing. So really thank you for your time here.
100%. I enjoyed it, man. And hope you
it was
guys
great
got
to
some
chat.
value out of it. And anyway, same for me. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And it was a pleasure being here.
Awesome. Cheers.